Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Advancing with Watercolor. I'm Gary Tucker. Today I'm looking at a common challenge we face as artists, which is painting an icon. I visited Venice this past September with several students. We stood in front of Santa Maria Della Salute, a famous icon of Venice on the Grand Canal, and painted. However, when we're standing in front of such an icon, we remember, at least I do, some of the great images that have come out of in the history of painting, versions of different artists' vision and love of the motif of this beautiful building. Um, Turner painted the canal many times, as did Sargent, and some of Sargent's watercolors remain very much in the front of my mind as I'm looking at this motif. The challenge with painting a motif, an icon that's been painted and has such a stature in the history of art, is that we feel like we're almost repeating history, or that we have. Let's put it this way: we have to find something new, something that's born out of our experience in looking at this building, but which has a unique take, something that's not really leaning too much on the beautiful images of the past. And this can be a real challenge. And for such reasons, we often avoid painting these icons because they can be like a song that's played too much. And this song could be and often is very beautiful, but it gets overplayed, and for that reason, we almost lose our desire to paint it. So, in looking at Salute, I'm admiring it in the morning light, and I have a feeling, a sensation, that this will be the focus of my painting and a series of paintings to bring out that quality of morning light as it falls across Santa Maria della Salute, a beautiful building that sits on the main canal in Venice. And I'm starting my process, as you can tell, as you've guessed already, with a tonal study using neutral tint, which is basically a black that has no warmth or no coolness to it, very neutral. But it does have a range. It can get very dark, and if you're using it with a lot of water, it can be very pale. So what you see me doing in this early stage is creating some graded washes. And in these graded washes, I'm starting to define the profile of the motif of Santa Maria della Salute. And I have a lot of interests as I'm beginning my search, as I'm beginning my painting. One is to know the building better, and I have quite a broad view in this early study. And what I mean by that is I'm showing practically the whole structure, minus the big dome, which is another distinguishing characteristic. But in this case, I've chosen to show the building from a profile, focus on some of the statuary on top. But as I continue the painting, my interest starts to move more towards the shadow pattern. And it starts to seem to me, the image or the idea starts to come out in my thinking that this could be the beginning or the essence of the painting that I would like to achieve, is this play of shadow across the bright stone of this wonderful motif. So as you can tell, my brushwork is starting to convey that. I'm approaching it with a sort of exuberance and a feeling that I would like to keep the brushwork as a very positive element of the painting, especially where it describes the angle of the shadow play that's moving across the front of the building, the way the shadow is described, the cast shadow from some of the taller statuary above, how it finds how these shadows darken as they move into the recesses, and how it lightens when there's light bouncing back up into the shadow. So this starts to emerge as an idea for me, and I'm not quite to the point where I can see it as a finished piece. In fact, very much in this study that I'm painting for you today, it's more of a exploration. And this stage that I'm working on now is already starting to have the feeling of a finished piece to me. And I guess it's more the thoughts that are going on in my mind is I'm starting to envision this as sort of a approach that I will take. So my brush is moving very simply across the shadows that are cast on the right side of the church. And I'm looking for patterns. I'm looking for ways to accentuate the brushwork to make it more outstanding. Basically, I'm painting the shadows now. And have a look at that middle shadow, the way it's been graded. A bit paler at top and a lot darker towards the bottom. This is picking up on an aspect of the particular shadows at this time of day where there's light bouncing back up into the building, and that light creates a feeling of luminosity, of glow. Even though we're working with one color, we're starting to feel some of that glowing aspect in the reflected light, the light bounce. Along the periphery of the building is another opportunity for creative marks, and I try to exploit that even in this small painting. The size of this piece is maybe, I don't know, 10 by 14 quarter sheet, so it's rather small, and because of its small size, I don't get too caught up in detail, and I find this will probably be a strength later on. If I can maintain the sort of boldness and large passages, I think that will carry the painting. And at this stage, I'm joining all of these darks. In the same time, I'm isolating the whites, where the light is striking the church very dramatically. These whites are connected as well as the darks, so the play of light and dark has presented itself as sort of the essence of my experience and the essence of my idea surrounding Salute. And in the future painting, which you'll see in a future video, I exploit this even more. Okay, well, we've got a pretty good sense of the shadow play. Now what I'd like to do is, in essence, make these shadows feel more transparent. And I do this with a smaller brush. You see I'm holding it lower towards the furrow so that I can get a little more control. I'm still exercising this feeling of calligraphy, and the dry brush helps me in doing this. It doesn't give me a descriptive mark. It gives me more of a calligraphic mark. And if this calligraphic mark is placed in the general proximity of where it should be, it's going to describe the detail. So I'm really concentrating on calligraphic marks. I think that's going to be the strength of the image and give it a painterly feel. And so I'm really pushing that aspect even in this study. In developing a motif of this nature, it's not uncommon to spend a few months with studies, with different perspectives, seeing it in different types of light. And it's for that reason, it's a really good project for the advancing watercolorist to take a single subject that you feel you can sink your teeth into and paint it in many different, from many different points of view. Paint it in black and white as I'm doing here, paint it with a broader palette. Get to know the subject in this way. And as I explore this complex building, I start to internalize or memorize the important aspects, and so that I can, in the end, in the painting which you will see in the next video, I can do something like a performance. I feel I've memorized the qualities, the shadow play, the detail, to the point that I feel it's important, and feel very free to perform it with brushwork and play of color. And in fact, that's probably the main goal in doing these smaller studies, whether in color or black and white, is to reach a point where I feel I can perform the watercolor and, in one sense, be free of observing the subject too much and allowing the joy that I feel in painting with watercolor to come out more, and in the same time be descriptive and honor this really beautiful subject. So it's a balancing act, and each artist is going to have a different approach to it. Singer Sargent is one of my heroes, and I think he's a hero for many watercolorists. He approached Salute in a similar manner. His brushwork, if you look at his paintings, was very lively, and at the same time he was able to grab small details or small parts that brought out the character of Salute, and that combination of a loose and sort of free application with watercolor and with a bit of refinement and detail is a really great balance, and it's something I admire about his paintings. So I'm finishing up some of the detail in the upper level of the painting. I'm going to be working now to make this shadow feel a little more transparent and describe some of the facade of Salute. And I'll continue to work on it and build up detail and nuance, but I feel like I've come to know the building quite well through this exercise and feel ready to move up to a larger painting and do some color work as well. But I think I've got a template, or at least an understanding of the sort of painting I see as my vision of Santa Maria Della Salute. And so in the next series, or the next video, I'm going to be presenting not the final version, but at least a conclusion to this particular exercise in working with an icon. Some of the problems that came up are the sort of draw to repeat what's been done already. And as a solution, I've kind of zeroed in on a small part of Salute that doesn't show it in its entirety, but plays more upon the shadow work of the building. So join me next week in Advancing with Watercolor as I paint Santa Maria della Salute once more. See you next week.